The Real Slim Shady. Take number 1. Hey, thanks for checking out this video. So I'm going to keep this intro really brief just so we can dive straight in. What you're about to see is my transcription of Eminem's rhythmic flow on the first verse of The Real Slim Shady. So if you want to learn a little bit more about how I studied and deconstructed the rhythms, stick around till after the transcription. But if you're not interested in that and you just want to see some drums, enjoy. No more clowning around.
We're gonna have a problem here. Y'all act like you never seen a white person before. Jaws all on the floor like Pam, like Tommy just burst in the door and started whooping her ass worse than before. They first were divorced, throwing her over furniture. It's the return of the... Oh, wait, no way, you're kidding. He didn't just say what I think he did he? And Dr. Dre said, nothing, you idiots. Dr. Dre's dead, he's locked in my basement. Feminist women love Eminem. Chicka, 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 Slim Shady. I'm sick of him. Look at him, walking around, grabbing his you-know-what, flipping the you-know-who. Yeah, but he's so cute, though. Yeah, I probably got a couple of screws up in my head loose, but no worse than what's going on in your parents' bedroom. And sometimes I wanna get on TV and just let loose, but can't. But it's cool for Tom Green to hump a dead moose. My bum is on your lips, my bum is on your lips. And if I'm lucky, you might just give it a little kiss. And that's the message that we deliver to little kids, and expect them not to know what a woman's clitoris is. Of course they're gonna know what intercourse is. By the time they hit 4th grade, they got the Discovery Channel, don't they? We ain't nothing but mammals. Well, some of us cannibals who cut other people open like cantaloupes. But if we can hump dead animals and antelopes, then there's no reason that a man and another man can't elope. But if you feel like I feel, I got the antidote. Women wear your pantyhose, sing the chorus and it goes. I'm Slim Shady, yes I'm the real Shady. All you other Slim Shadys are just imitating.
Alright, so hope you enjoyed that little transcription performance of Eminem's rhythmic flow applied to the drum set. So here's a little bit of backstory. I had never watched the 8 Mile movie in my life until a couple of months ago. So after having seen that, it sparked a bit of interest this time. So I checked out a couple of his tunes, and considering it's not the music I usually listen to, it gave me a lot of ideas. So as a drummer, and moreover as a general musician who's really interested in rhythm and what you can do with it, I thought, okay, maybe there's something here that I can figure out. And I'm always on the hunt for new ideas, especially rhythms and ideas that can be applied to drum set which don't originate from the drum set itself. For example, when I get called to record for an artist and they already have a drum part created for their song. Now, some of the most interesting ones I've ever had to record were drum parts created by a keyboard player on the keyboard or by a producer on some pads on an MPC or whatever. So in this case, I thought, okay, Eminem obviously has a pretty good command of rhythm and knows where he wants all his syllables to land, and the rhythmic flow is also quite unique. So I thought, all right, maybe I could check this out and apply it to the drum set somehow. Now, as far as transcribing rhythms which don't even originate within music, I'm sure you guys are familiar with, for example, mononeon. Or, for example, someone like David Dockery.
Pepe Sylvia, this name keeps coming up over and over again every day. Pepe's nail getting said back to me. Pepe Sylvia, Pepe Sylvia. Look at the note. With this whole box is Pepe Sylvia.
Now, this stuff has always fascinated me. I always found it super interesting and extremely entertaining as well. But I noticed that no one really did this with rappers per se. Now, if I'm missing something and I haven't found a cool video you know of, please send it my way. I always love to learn about new things. But having said that, I just thought, okay, rhythmic flow doesn't originate on the drum set. I'm gonna see if I can put it on the drum set. Now, what I love about Eminem's rapping is that the rhythmic flow is very precise and very intelligently created, I guess you could say. Now, beyond this, there's use of certain phrases injected within the rap which create a certain shape. For example, in the beginning of the first verse, he uses the words white person before, jaws all on the floor, worse than before, first we're divorced. It's just rhyming, right? No. Personally, I feel that there's a step deeper than this. It's the way things are crafted. And when you look a little bit more in depth, you start to realize that there's a lot of these things going on. It's not just about rhyming words, but actually the flow and A song like this, for example, has a certain swung feel to it, which just grooves like heck. So when I came to study these rhythms, I took a certain approach with certain steps. Now I'm going to show you exactly kind of how I figured it out and what I did. And as I mentioned before, when it came time to performing it, I actually abandoned all of that. Of course, when you're practicing something, you want to approach it from a bit of a technical standpoint, maybe academic, maybe a little bit more analytical, and you're observing things and you're figuring things out. But ideally, when you practice something, you practice it obviously to the point where it becomes second nature and you don't need to think about these processes anymore. So that's why we study exercises. Now, in my case, the first step was clapping the downbeats and learning the rap itself. Now I'm gonna spare you the pain of listening to me trying to rap along to an Eminem tune because 1, I'm not a rapper, 2, I guess my accent doesn't really work for it anyway, but just check it out. So this is where I started. Now what I want you to bear in mind is that the first example only, I'm gonna show you a slow version and then the full speed version. Just please take it for granted the fact that every step of the way I built it up from about 40% speed all the way up to 100. But it's taken time to learn it properly and accurately. So here is clapping the downbeats and learning the rap vocally slow.
Y'all act like you never seen a white person before. Jaws all on the floor like Pam, like Tommy just burst in the door and started whooping her ass worse than before. They first were divorced, throwing her over furniture.
And now check it out at full speed.
Problem here. Y'all act like you never seen a white person before. Jaws all on the floor like Pam, like Tommy just burst in the door and started whooping her ass worse than before. They first were divorced, throwing her over furniture.
Cool, so that's step 1. Now what benefit did I get out of starting there? I always try when I'm transcribing, whether it's Eminem's Rhythmic Flow or some crazy rhythmic stuff by Tigran Hamasyan or a saxophone solo by Wayne Shorter. Whatever it is, the first thing I always do is always start with your voice. So you need to listen to something until you're absolutely sick of it and you know every little bit note for note, you know, all the little intricacies, and you understand and you've absorbed it. Once you've absorbed it, use your voice any way you can. Whether it's a melody or a saxophone solo, you might want to sing it or whistle it. Whatever you can figure out that works for you, try and get that step first. Now, once I felt I internalized it pretty well by means of learning the rap, clapping the downbeats to identify where the pulse is, I decided, okay, feeling good enough, I'm going to start taking it to the drums. So step 2 was still keeping it super simple. I just applied the rhythms to the snare drum. Just single strokes, nothing fancy, just identifying where all the rhythms are and the spacing between the notes and applying it to the drums. Now the challenge here for me was that I didn't use any particular stickings, I didn't create a system around it. The idea I had was more just to internalize this rhythm, and whether I play a certain syllable or phrase with the right hand or the left hand, however it comes out, it comes out. And I thought that that helped me internalize it a little better and not rely on things happening on a certain side. Of course, eventually, you know, you pick up certain habits and tendencies along the way, but heck, I'm human, you know. So yeah, here it is, just single strokes on the snare, nice and simple. Check it out.
We're gonna have a problem here. Y'all act like you never seen a white person before. Jaws all on the floor like Pam, like Tommy just burst in the door and started whooping her ass worse than before. They first were divorced, throwing her over furniture. It's the return of the... Oh, wait, no, wait, you're kidding. He didn't just say what I think he did he? And Dr. Dre said, nothing, you idiots. Dr. Dre's dead, he's locked locked in my basement. Feminist women love Eminem.
Alright, so decent step. Got that done. Now what I wanted to do next was identify certain phrasing ideas, certain long notes and short notes, certain maybe dynamics, textural ideas. So at this point I incorporated maybe some buzz rolls or press rolls for longer notes, some flams to give a little bit more shape, or accents and quieter ghost notes to give a bit more contour to what I was doing. Here it is with a little bit more fanciness on the snare drum.
Y'all act like you never seen a white person before. Jaws all on the floor like Pam, like Tommy just burst in the door and started whooping her ass worse than before. They first were divorced, sewing her over furniture. It's the return of the... Oh, wait, no, wait, you're kidding. He didn't just say what I think he did he? And Dr. Dre said, nothing, you idiots. Dr. Dre's dead. He's locked in my basement.
Cool. That was fun. And that step for me was particularly interesting just because I kept it still focused on one voice on the snare drum, and I tried to use just the sounds of one drum to make things a little bit more interesting and textural. The next step I went for was using the hi-hat to kind of lay out the pulse. So first I placed the hi-hat on the downbeats just to block it all out and figure out where everything is, like so.
I'm sick of him. Look at him walking around, grabbing his you-know-what, flipping the you-know-who. Yeah, but he's so cute, though. Yeah, I probably got a couple of screws up in my head loose, but no worse than what's going on in your parents' bedrooms. But sometimes I want to get on TV and just let loose, but can't. But it's cool for Tom Green to hump a dead moose. My bum is on your lips. My bum is on your lips. And if I'm lucky, you might just give it a little kiss. And that's the message that...
And the step after that was actually to put the hi-hat on the upbeats, which was much more challenging. So it might sound a little messier, but... check it out, see what you think.
Yeah, I probably got a couple of screws up in my head loose, but no worse than what's going on in your parents' bedrooms. But sometimes I want to get on TV and just let loose, but can't. But it's cool for Tom Green to hump a dead moose. My bum is on your lips, my bum is on your lips. And if I'm lucky, you might just give it a little kiss. And that's the message that we deliver to little kids, and expect them not to know what a woman's clitoris is.
One step further from this was playing the snare drum pattern, i.e. the rap, over what I call the jazz feed. Now, you may or may not be familiar with what this means, but essentially it just means the bass drum feathering on all the downbeats and the hi-hat playing the upbeats. My bad, sorry, I meant hi-hat on the 2 and the 4, not the upbeats. Now, this just incorporates the whole body and gives you a sense of time where you can keep the time by means of your feet and then push and pull the time a little bit more fluidly on the snare drum.
Great, they got the Discovery Channel, don't they? And we ain't nothing but mammals. Well, some of us cannibals who cut other people open like cantaloupes. But if we can hump dead animals and antelopes, then there's no reason that a man and another man can't elope. But if you feel like I feel, I got the antidote. Women wave your pantyhose, sing the chorus, and it goes. I'm Slim.
Once I accomplished that, the next step was to double time the jazz feet. Therefore, what I was playing on my hands was exactly the same, but the feet were going at twice the rate. Now I did this just to get a different feel and to understand how I could frame these rhythms a little bit differently were I to be in a different musical situation, and this might inspire me to play something in that situation. So here it is with the double time jazz feet.
Dr. Dre said, nothing, you idiots. Dr. Dre's dead. He's locked in my basement. Feminist women love Eminem. Chicka, 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 Slim Shady. I'm sick of him. Look at him walking around, grabbing his you-know-what, flipping the you-know-who. Yeah, but he's so cute, though. Yeah, I probably got a couple of screws up in my head loose, but no worse than what's going on in your parents' bedrooms. But sometimes I want to get on TV and just let loose, but can't. But it's cool for Tom Green to hump a dead moose. My bum is on your lips. My bum is on your lips. And if I'm lucky, you might just give it a little kiss. And that's the message that we deliver to little kids, and expect them not to know what a woman's clitoris is. Of course.
At this stage, the next thing I did was just have fun with it, man. I went again from very slow to very fast, and I just tried to take the rhythms which I had internalized and applied them all around the kit, just figuring out how I wanted to orchestrate it in the moment. So here's a little bit of that.
Clitoris is, of course they're gonna know what it enforces. By the time they hit 4th grade, they got the Discovery Channel, don't they? And we ain't nothing but mammals. Well, some of us cannibals who cut other people open like cantaloupes. But if we can hump dead animals and antelopes, then there's no reason that a man and another man can't elope.
The final step I took was a little method to use certain phrases as drum fills and use them within a context of a groove to be able to create fills out of them. Now this is something you can do endlessly. There's so much fun you can have with this kind of thing, but I'm just gonna give you one particular example. It's a little snippet, a bar long snippet, and I created a little system of 3 bars groove, 1 bar fill, and just kind of looped that around, and I improvised and just figured out what sort of ideas it gave me in the moment. So that would be maybe a little exercise that you can do rather than learning the entire thing. Maybe you hear a rap or a particular rhythm which inspires you and you think, okay, I'm gonna transcribe this and see what I can create. Put it in the context of a groove and see how that works for you. So check that out now.
And there's no reason that a man and another man can't elope. That a man and another man can't elope. And there's no reason that a man and another man can't elope. And there's no reason that a man and another man can't elope.
Alright everyone, thanks for sticking through the video so far with me. This video has been a long time coming. I have been procrastinating a little bit, but I had so many ideas that I wanted to put in this video, so hopefully it's translated well, and I really hope that you learned something out of it. Now, as I said earlier in the video, when it came time to perform these rhythms on the drum set, I abandoned all the ideas of the exercises and all the stuff I had worked on, and the reason is this: Eminem swings. Now, what do I mean by this? In my view, how I see it is when you really understand what you want to do with a certain rhythm, you have the freedom of sticking to the grid or not sticking to the grid. By grid, I mean binary time or ternary time or whatever sort of subdivision is going on beneath what you're doing. Now, when I was transcribing this, I was very tempted to write down all the rhythms, as I often do with my transcriptions, but what I noticed was these kind of rhythms really can't be taken too literally at all. Now, at certain points you can hear Eminem pushing ahead of the beat, or pulling behind the beat, or creating certain rhythms around the downbeat which are very human, very organic and very real. They are not at all robotic or sterile at all. Now, prior to this, the biggest obvious example from my previous transcriptions where I felt the kind of same thing was through transcribing Elvin Jones. Jazz flex! Yeah, jazz! So there's a lot to be said about the pushing and pulling of time, the organic human feel you can attain out of these certain rhythms. So I invite you, when you're transcribing stuff, do listen out for these things. Is the soloist or the performer placing their notes directly on the beat, or a little bit behind the beat, or a little bit ahead of the beat? This is how you can create a real beautiful feeling of push and pull, of tension and release in what you're doing. So in this case, transcribing Eminem, I felt it was kind of similar to when I was transcribing Elvin. And in that case, I did write the parts down, and I realized you really can't take this too literally, because if you just had to see the notes written on a paper, you would just interpret it as tidy. But really, the human feel, that uniqueness to somebody's playing and to their expression, comes from this push and pull. So when you transcribe, I would say perhaps it's even more important to just listen out for these things and memorize them and internalize them, digest all of this musical information. And it's not necessarily as important to write things down. Of course, there are benefits to writing things down, but maybe that's an idea for a whole other video. So yeah, I'm gonna end the video with one more performance just for the fun of it. Now, you might hear that this one's just a little bit different. There are certain ideas which are the same, but there are some which are different. It was just for fun. So thanks so much for checking out my video about Eminem's rhythmic flow on the Real Slim Shady applied to the drum set. I hope you enjoyed the performances and the lesson, and I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks so much.
We're gonna have a problem here. Y'all act like you never seen a white person before. Jaws all on the floor like Pam, like Tommy just burst in the door and started whooping her ass worse than before. They first were divorced, sewing her over furniture. It's the return of the... Oh, wait, no, wait, you're kidding. He didn't just say what I think he did he? And Dr. Dre said, nothing, you idiots. Dr. Dre's dead, he's locked in my basement. Feminist women love Eminem. Chicka, chicka. Slim Shadys are just imitating. So won't the real Slim Shady please stand up? Please stand up. Please stand up.
I think that's it. I've finally done it. Yeah.